It's exactly 9:21, and our next guest is Advocate of the High Court of South Africa and the organizer of Protect the Rohingya. She is Shabnam Mayet. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the program.
Walaikum salam. Thank you very much for having me.
Nice to have you here, and our heartfelt condolences on the passing of your father a short while ago. We just make dua Allah grant Jannah and sabr to the family, inshallah.
Jazakallah. Ameen.
Shabnam, Rohingya genocide survivors will this week for the first time be able to share their stories in a court of law anywhere in the world. And the Burmese Rohingya organization has said ahead of this historic hearing in Argentina. So two things. Why Argentina? Did it happen yesterday? And this then talks directly to universal jurisdiction, which you're going to explain to us.
Okay, so in November of 2019, the Burmese Rohingya organization of the UK and Thomas Ojia Quintana, who was the special rapporteur from the UN to Myanmar between 2008 and 2014, brought the case to the Argentinian court. The lower courts dismissed the case, saying that there was a case running concurrently at the International Criminal Court, and then this was appealed, and yesterday at the Federal Criminal Appeal Court, this matter was set down to be heard. We're still waiting to hear what happened in that hearing, but basically it's part of the procedure to see whether the Argentinian judiciary will then take on the case. And what's going to happen is that Rohingya survivors of the genocide, including 5 women, are going to be addressing the court on the mass murder, on the rape, on all the things that happened to them during the genocide in 2017. And it's going to be very interesting to watch. And you asked earlier, what is universal jurisdiction? And the principle behind it is that some crimes like genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity are such horrific crimes that they are the problem of every state in the world, and under universal jurisdiction, they can be tried anywhere in the world.
So then what is the ICC's role here? Is it better then to take it to any court in the world, or is the ICC still your better bet, so to speak?
Okay, so one of the issues that is coming out is the issue of complementarity. And this means that states have the primary responsibility to prosecute international crimes, but does the ICC take precedence over national authorities? And what the lawyers in this case are saying is that even though the case is being heard at the ICC, for the ICC case, they have to find jurisdiction because Myanmar is not a member of the Rome Statute, but Bangladesh is. And so they looked at crimes which had an effect on the territory of Bangladesh, like the displacement, for example. What they're saying is that when it comes to the Argentinian courts, this is not a problem because they're going to be looking at crimes that occurred entirely in Myanmar. So it's not going to basically be duplicating what the ICC is listening to.
What is the outcome you're hoping for? And I know you've been an advocate for this particular, the Rohingya people's problem, crisis, displacement, etc. You've been flying that flag for as long as I can remember. So what are you hoping, what sort of outcome are you hoping for? And if it is a good outcome, what's it telling to the rest of the world? And how's it going to change the situation or the position of the Rohingya people?
Well, I think what we're always hoping for at the very basis is a platform for genocide survivors to speak about what has happened to them. And then, of course, accountability and the recognition, because you remember that all the states have not recognized this as a genocide. And so the recognition of this as a genocide, the ability of genocide survivors to come onto the forum in international courts and state what happened to them, And I think that the more cases that are brought on behalf of the Rohingya in universal jurisdiction cases in various jurisdictions, as well as the case in the ICC, the case brought in the ICJ by the Gambia, all of this just gives more credibility to the case. It also gives a space for the Rohingya to be heard, and it pushes more international pressure on Myanmar.
What about victimization? So their cases get heard remotely or otherwise. Um, they and their families could be further victimized, could they not?
Well, in this case, that is not really a fear because those giving evidence virtually will be based in Cox's Bazar in the refugee camps in Bangladesh. And whether we like it or not, those Rohingya that are currently stuck in Rakhine State, 600,000 of them, 130,000 of them since 2012, living in concentration camp-like conditions, not much is changing for them. In fact, their situation is getting even worse due to the COVID crisis and now because of the military coup and what's happening in Myanmar. So I don't think that is that kind of threat at this stage.
So from what you're telling me, it seems as if their situation is worsening by the day.
Definitely. And, you know, the number of those killed by the coup is hitting over 1,000 now. The people of Myanmar coming out in the streets, continuing to protest in really brave, incredible ways. The Myanmar military still meeting them with extreme force.
Well, we hope and pray that they are heard and the international community sits up, takes notice, and starts intervening to possibly make the Rohingya people's situation a little better. What would that better be in your mind, Shabnam? I also know that a little while ago, scores of Rohingya people were pushed off onto some camp, some island just off the mainland, so to speak. And people were resisting this, I should imagine, because they didn't know what their futures are going to be like. Would they be able to survive there? Would they be able to work there? So what does that better outcome mean to someone like you that is truly, really worried? You're deep into these people, the Rohingya people's problems. You want to better the situation. You and many other advocates around the world who are fighting for the rights of the Rohingya people. What is the outcome you would like to see?
I think the outcome is what the Rohingya themselves would like to see, and that is they would like to be able to return home with full citizenship rights. They would like accountability on the side of the military that did this to them. But also in countries where there are refugees, integration is essential. And Bangladesh is not integrating Rohingya refugees. They're not allowing them into the schooling system. They're not allowing them to seek jobs. And even last week with the World Bank offering a further $590 million plus dollars, for refugees and host communities, Bangladesh is still not giving Rohingya their rights as refugees, as non-signatories to the Refugee Convention. They're still calling them displaced Myanmar citizens. And it's been proven around the world that when we integrate refugees and we give them an opportunity to contribute, in fact, that's better for the country as a whole. Keeping 1 million people locked up in a camp surrounded by barbed wire is not ideal. And you mentioned Bhasan Char, which is the island where Bangladesh has taken over, plans to take over 100,000 Rohingya. And all the things that they were promised on the island have not come to pass. They don't have proper access to medical relief and assistance. They don't have freedom of movement. And they're not happy on the island, despite how Bangladesh has sold it. There has been no proper technical assessment of the island. It is a flood-prone island, and we've seen in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, recently now that the monsoon season has come. There's been incredible flooding in the Rohingya camps. 21,000 people have been displaced. 13,000 structures have been destroyed. The situation is untenable for the Rohingya. This is not how genocide survivors should be forced to live.
So displaced people being displaced once again by natural elements. What a sad story indeed. In closing, Shabnam, let me ask you, and I know you've been involved for very many years in the Rohingya plight. What drew you to this plight and these people in particular?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question.
I know that you have been involved for many years in the plight of the Rohingya people. What is it about the Rohingya people that drew you to this particular issue? You could have been an advocate for any number of other organizations and fight for their rights.
I think from our side, it was that, it was already 2012 and we knew so little about the Rohingya, and we felt like as an organization, if we know so little about the Rohingya, then probably other people also need to learn more. And because at that stage, so few people were speaking about the issue, especially in South Africa where there are no Rohingya refugees, we just felt that it was very important to speak about it because of the similarities, because of how Rohingya are forced to carry specific documents. They're not allowed freedom of movement, allowed into tertiary education. They had required government permission to get married, and they were very much entrenched apartheid-like laws. And we felt like as South Africans, this is important for us to cover. And also Archbishop Desmond Tutu and how he believed that, this was also racism and how it had to be addressed by the nation as a whole to move forward. And I think, those were the reasons probably.
Good on you. May you continue flying that flag as high as you can. Allah accept all of your efforts. And Jazakallah so much for talking to us on the show today.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. That was Advocate Shabnam Mayet talking to us about the Rohingya plight. It is 9:33, and just before we move on, we've had a couple of comments about the issue around the scrapping of the October school holidays. I have a couple of people call in. First caller saying there are some learners who have been going to school once a week. Why the need for the holiday? There is a lot of catching up to be done. Next comment, this generation of learners are going to suffer in the future because of the short education time. And last but not least, a parent saying that I just told my son's teacher yesterday that I concur fully with the department on this one, that the school holidays have to be scrapped. We need to make up for lost time. So those are the comments we're hearing about the talk about school holidays being scrapped by the Department of Education. But the CEO of the South African Teachers Union, Chris Klopper, saying not so, can't be done. The children need their break. 9:34 exactly, news and views with me, Julie.